this opportunity, but one of the questions I had on last Friday when the governor's team spoke about how they got to this place with ACES is that they said that the governor asked them to find a gross tax option, and then they moved on to how to get a fair tax structure compared to the current production tax. What we never heard was what they looked at and why they threw that out on the issue of a gross tax. Have you had any reviews in the House and Senate briefings from the governor that may have been more in-depth than the public has had, either at the LIO here in Fairbanks or at the Carlson Center, that spoke to how they looked at or looked for a possible gross tax that might work? I don't have the full story as to why they threw that out, and that's what I wonder about. And if you haven't heard it, I hope that you will have their commissioners, Pat Galvin and Tom Irwin there to answer those questions in depth as to how far they looked at that. Because when we're back at the gross receipts issue, that seems to be critical. What is the administration, or what has the administration done with that? And I hope you ask those questions.
Wasn't a great deal of explanation as to why they abandoned that approach and only left the 10% gross floor on the legacy fields rather than they felt that they obviously paid for themselves, and that it made sense there and not on the encourage development. That's about the end of the statement, but ask the question, that when we got to Juneau, when I got to Juneau, and I would like to have a better explanation of how they arrived at that. With Governor Palin at least feeling initially very strongly that what should be done.
My concern is that they don't have really good numbers to justify what they're going to the gross, or understand it well enough to be able to get there. And I asked Marsha Davis in committee when get a better understanding of their mind that got them to where they are, because I expect the resources will have to build for a week. We will have time to understand. But Richard, do you have something as part of the?
For general information, what you want to look for, and I would Richard Franklin, and I'm consulting to the administration, but not dependent. What I think you want to look for is the model of the 7 fields. They were shown, if you were there Friday night, 7 new fields, and state what the hypothetical size is, the kind of field it would be, the economics, and then they have several net cases and several gross cases, and they outline what they are under the 7 fields. A very dense presentation. It was not clear. I still have not checked out the numbers in detail. I'd seen them out earlier before it got finalized and couldn't understand it. I now understand where they were going, but you're looking for the net present value for those fields under different assumptions, and it's the 7-field model that DNR did, Natural Resources, for the Revenue Department. And that's what you want to be looking for the answer to Mr. Hoskins' very excellent question as to how good the numbers are until we look in detail. I don't think you do know. I think it's a very good question. That's where you want to hunt for the answer on that one for new fields. Then there are a whole host of other questions related, whether everything is in that, whether it is in that model, whether it's comprehensive, whether the assumptions were valid. We can now start to ask that because last Friday they did lay out a few of the scenarios and the assumptions for the net and the gross, and that's the model that they claim drove them to the net. It's what I believe dragged the governor kicking and screaming to the net. So that's where you would want to look for that answer. Could I make some two general observations about where we're going? These are, I think, very good questions. I came to hear what people would have to say, but I think one of the broad questions that I would have us ask ourselves, the two at the broadest level, where I'm getting into the weeds on the net versus gross and how to answer that question. In the broad questions, do we need to do something now? I would say, historically, where Senator Thomas was talking about the 10-to-1 return on litigation to get our revenue back, we did that over 20 years, and we had to do it. And it took a lot of energy, even though it had great returns. We've gotten over $6 billion by doing it through the years. But it was caused by a new field, Prudhoe Bay, so we didn't quite understand how the economics would play out. So there's complicated stuff, and we just didn't know. And high oil prices, the two price spikes of the 70s, creating a new price environment. The industry basically talked us to death for 20 years and laughed all the way to the bank while they were doing it. And where are we right now? A new regime we don't fully understand, with high prices once more, unprecedented, unexpected, high prices, sea change, and all of a sudden we've got the same thing. So there is a need, I see, to do something right now at the broadest terms. Now you would think from that I'm going to join those who said, let's go back to the gross. I don't have the answer, but my concern, and I just want to state the general concern on it, and I'm not even sure that I like the floor on the gross, because what we have to look at is what the industry views as its stress price long term, where the increasing costs begin to affect their returns so they can do better elsewhere. At $60 to $80, there may be no stress price that we can see right now. But in 1998, when I did my first report on profitability, I said we had to deal with high prices conceptually, and at that time, the day my report came out, oil had gone under $10 per barrel for the first time in over 10 years, 12, 13 years, and was still dropping. And I was saying, gee, we need to look at high prices. Nobody paid any attention. And by early 99, that was late 98, prices began going up. And by 03, 04, it finally became clear that was a trend. They were going straight up. And I didn't have a crystal ball. I didn't predict prices were going up. I only predicted the one thing we do know about oil is you don't know what's going to happen in the future, and it will fool you. And the person who got the prices wrong, I don't want to take any credit for doing it right, because I said conceptually we need to consider high prices, not that they're going up. But the one person who got it wrongest and was slowest to get it was Daniel Yergin of the prize, Cambridge Energy, the reigning expert. He's so slow to pick it up that he had egg all over his face, and Cambridge Energy did for several years, not seeing a trend. My point here is the opposite is true, where it looks like high prices for public policy, we do need to consider the low prices